Now, South Africa's biggest telecoms operators have called for internet companies to pay for part of the upkeep and expansion of telecoms networks. The operators have spent billions on network expansion and maintenance each year. Business Day's business writer Mudiwa Gavaza joins us now for a look at the raging debate about who should pay or at least contribute to the building and maintenance of this infrastructure. Thank you so much for your time, Mudiwa. I actually do have to start off with the prospects for the telecoms sector now that we are operating under the government of national unity, but also the telecom sector does have a new minister and actually belonging to the opposition. What are some of the expectations there in terms of the direction that the sector could take?
Well, good afternoon, Zinate. And funny enough, that's actually why, we wrote this piece. It was a cover that we did in the Financial Mail last week. And, the premise was to say you've got Solly Malatse, who's just come in as the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. What are some of the things that he's likely going to have to be dealing with, along the way? We know from the DA's ICT policy for 2024 that a couple of the things that they're looking at is they're asking questions like, is it necessary for us to have the SABC, for example? Is that something that could be taken to a voter referendum? Talking about infrastructure sharing amongst, telecoms operators. Also trying to reduce maybe not reduce, but to increase the place of private players, in the sector. And part of what they're saying is around, let's let the smaller players in, and, some of the things that we can do is to let them use some of the established infrastructure that's there, all of that. And that was our jumping off point to say, well, interestingly, there are all these things happening around infrastructure already. And one of the biggest debates, and this is a global debate, is if you are an internet player, think Google, think Netflix, think any one of those companies, should you be paying a toll? If we say that the information superhighway is literally a highway, right? Should the big internet players such as Netflix, Google, and others be paying a toll fee, for operating, on these highways, so that they can contribute to the maintenance and also building of future networks going forward?
And these highways that are built by, for example, companies such as Telecoms and all of that, what are they saying here?
So we spoke to a couple of them. Obviously, when it comes to mobile operators, we focused mainly on the mobile operators. You could extend this this debate to satellite providers, fiber providers, but we focused mainly on the mobile operators because they're the ones that have made the most noise, and they're the ones with the biggest customer bases in the market. So you're talking to Serame Taukobong at Telkom, Shamil Jusab at Vodacom, as well as Ralph Peter at MTN. And the consensus is, let's do something. Right?
And we know how much money they spend on CapEx.
Exactly. Right. There was a run a couple of years ago when between Vodacom and MTN they were doing an average of about 10 billion rand a year just on CapEx, and this was mainly in South Africa. Both those players have operations in the rest of the continent, but in South Africa they were spending billions, and the rationale is we're spending billions, you guys are benefiting from the infrastructure we have in place. Surely. And whilst you're doing that, the other piece is you guys are benefiting, but you're also taking money out of our pockets, right? Think WhatsApp and FaceTime.
Exactly.
Right? WhatsApp and FaceTime are probably some of the biggest reasons why we hear this narrative in telecoms around declining voice revenue, declining SMS revenue, because
they're taking away.
So you can call at a much cheaper rate on WhatsApp and FaceTime and all of these other players, and you can also message at way cheaper rates than SMS. Plus, you guys get the benefit of the infrastructure. So that's the position that the telecoms operators have taken.
You're saying that this is a global debate. Has there been any movement globally in terms of how this is moving? Any learnings that we can take from the global players?
So I'll point you to two markets. The first one is the European Union, because in terms of the current debate, that's where we've seen the most, I'm going to call it the most global noise.
Okay.
Last year we saw around August, September, we saw a letter that was penned to the European Union by 20 of the biggest telecoms operators. Their CEOs wrote, this open letter, advocating for this same position that I've just spoken about. One of them was Vodacom's parent, which is Vodafone.
Yes.
Right. So that's so in Europe, it's a big thing already, right? So that's on one place. Then the other one is, it should be in, now I'm just getting slightly confused, but Southeast Asia.
Yes.
It's either Singapore or South Korea.
South Korea.
Yeah, it should be South Korea,
yeah.
where they've implemented policies around this. And they actually say that, the rates of internet penetration, the rates of internet speed, all of that stuff, they're some of the highest in the world in that country, because they've put in these measures, and your big internet players are contributing, to this piece. I think just the one piece I will also just add, the internet guys know that they need to get involved in infrastructure. Right?
Yeah.
So you've seen undersea on should be the western side of Africa.
Yeah.
You've got a cable that's being run. It should be, I'm trying to remember. One of there are two cables.
Yes.
One is run by Google, one is run by Meta, right? And each one has spent about $1 billion, right? Building that undersea cable.
Yes.
And they also both, I know especially Meta, they have been investing a little bit in some of the telecoms networks on the continent.
So it's not that they're staying away. There is some investment that they are making.
Yeah.
All right, so they're not against it.
They're not against it.
Yeah.
But the mobile operators are like, okay, we see that you're doing something, but there's a huge shortfall. Some estimates are saying that there's about $100 billion worth of infrastructure that still needs to be built. And they're like, well, are you guys going to come along with us? We see what you're doing. Think Starlink.
Yes.
Amazon is also doing satellites. We've spoken about Meta and Google. So you can see the guys are putting in infrastructure.
Okay.
But the operators are like, we need a little bit more from you guys.
They're not just freeloaders. At least there's something that they're doing, but there's more to be done. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights there, Mudiwa. Really, really interesting conversation. That was Mudiwa Gavaza, business writer for Business Day.